Welcome, everyone, to Your Messy Brilliance podcast. I'm Kelly McNeilis, the founder of Wimmer for One, and I am so excited about today and speaking to this woman that I met, this incredible coach and therapist that I met while I was at Wisdom 2.0 this year. And the minute we met, actually, we spoke on the phone because she came by my table and I wasn't there because I was busy listening to all the incredible speakers there. I just knew we would have a connection and that we would be talking more about things and co-creating. So I'm really honored to have Nicole Lewis-Keeber here today. And I want to tell you a little bit about her before we start, because if you have, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a woman that's searching for her life and trying to understand her story, which is basically our entire community, Nicole is the person for you. So let me tell you a little bit about what she is currently doing and has done. She is a money mindset master. And I want to say that again because I think it's so cool. Money mindset. I mean, we all need that. She's a money mindset master with a background in therapy and life coaching. And using I don't even have to read this because she's so conversational and engaging. And I just felt like I was talking to an old friend. And what I loved about her is just talking to her, I was drawn in to talk about my own challenges. And so she almost kind of coached me on our first phone call because it was just so incredible what she's doing right now with business owners and coaching and really helping people release their blocks that they're unconscious of and the barriers to having the business they love and that loves them back. So Nicole has combined her experience as a therapist and mindset coach to assist entrepreneurs in revealing those blocks, right? Those blind sets that have origins from their past experiences, which at Women for One, that's what we're all about taking a look and getting an awareness of our past experiences so that we can make life happen on our own terms right now. So Nicole has, written about the impact of small T trauma, which we're going to get into today, on entrepreneurship. And these can be found on Medium, and they're going to be on her blog, but they're also going to be on Women for One because, we're doing this and she's going to have a blog along with it and become a Women for One truth teller. And Nicole lives in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is dear to my heart because I used to live there, with her husband, Jason, and her 3 fat, happy cats, which is so great. So welcome, Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm really honored to talk to you today. And I think you could be a real support and guide to our community about what we want to talk about. So before we get into anything, I want to ask you about your own story and how you came to where you are right now and serving entrepreneurs. And can you just give us a little bit of background of who you are?
Yeah. So the down and dirty is that I was the person people always told their problems to. And so I decided to make a career out of it, and so I went and got a degree in social work, and I've been in the therapy realm for about 18 plus years. And at about year 18, I was feeling super crispy and burnt out, and I wanted to continue to help people, but I was searching for a new way to do that. And I worked with my own life coach, who was a Martha Beck certified coach. And she just really showed me what was possible in working with people towards goals and inspiration and vision for their life in a very high vibe way, And so it was very addictive to me. I was like, this is so cool. I want more of this. So I went out and got certified myself and became a tapping into wealth coach. And in that journey of working with entrepreneurs about their money mindset, I began to see that we weren't talking about money. Money was important, but really what we were talking about were those underlying blocks and blind spots that had their origin in some kind of trauma in their past. And so my clinical background really gave me the eye to see that things were a little bit deeper and different than what people were looking at it and approaching it with at that moment. That it wasn't just a mindset shift. There was actually something else here we needed to look at.
That's great. That's amazing. So what did you do with that then?
Our biggest teacher is ourselves. And so
right.
I really realized about 2 years into my own business and working with entrepreneurs around, money and mindset, I was not having any fun about 2 years in. And I know that, having a business is not all fun. But I realized one morning that I was actually feeling dread about my day. I was actually feeling I was in a very victim-y place. And I kept asking myself, like, why am I sitting here in this place feeling like I've already failed today? Like I've done nothing. It's 5:30 in the morning. I already feel like I have failed.
Mm.
And I was reading Big Magic by Liz Gilbert, and there was a chapter in there about a human, I think it was I always get it wrong. I think it's a environmental science professor or whatever, was talking to her class about starting 4 years of this, degree, studying nature. And she asked them, how many of you love nature? They all raised their hand. She said, how many of you think that nature loves you in return? And they all put their hands down. And so I'm here reading this book, and Liz Gilbert's amazing anyway. But it was like, yes, but it was like a thunderclap of, I am in this place where I love my business, but I do not feel like it loves me. In fact, I'm feeling quite abused by it in this moment. And so it gave me this moment of clarity of like, if I'm feeling traumatized and abused by my business, then I set up that relationship because of my past. And so like everything just fell into place from that point. And that is when it really became clear to me when I was working with my clients and saying, what is going on here? This feels like trauma. I realized in that moment it totally is. And so it changed everything about how I work and how I work with my clients.
I want to get into this more, but what you just said, that we do create our own reality to some extent, right? And we create our own business and make unconscious and conscious choices on how to use, how to create it, and then come up against roadblocks to learn. I mean, that's my belief system, at least. Like I've learned so much through Women for One in my business. And I have been right where you are, where I felt abused. I felt, and I'm sure working with other people, you have encountered all kinds of different trauma that people have encountered in their business that mirrors their past and their life at hand. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'd love to dig a little bit deeper on that because, I totally resonate with that. And I want to get into the self-responsibility place first, before we dive into like what we do when we have this awareness. Like, how do we first start taking that the self-responsibility that we have created this and made the choices to get us where we are in our business? What do you think people can do to move towards that place?
Yeah, it's a hard place to be, but also a very empowering place, because it comes down to us we have the ability to shift it. It's if we created it, we can change it, right?
Yeah.
And so there's actually a very empowerment piece of that, if you can recognize it and take a breath and ask yourself, okay, so what can I do to change this? What steps do I need to take? There's a real sacred place there. And so for me, the way I looked at it was, the history I have is that I had moments of being made powerless in relationships. And so I realized that this was a relationship, this business that I was in, and that I had by default created kind of a mean relationship with it, that my business was like a mean boss. And so for me, I needed to hang it on things that I understood. I understood relationships. I understood, what it's like to be an employee and have a boss that's kind of mean and not nice.
Right.
And so for me in that moment, that's how I began to look at it and say, okay, here's this piece of clarity. This is where I'm going to start so that I know what steps I need to do to change this thing. By asking myself those questions. And I think being in that moment of clarity and not judgment is huge.
Yeah, I obviously, starting to go into acceptance and awareness, those two places of, okay, here's where I am. Wow, I didn't even know I was here. And then when you have that, now you can start beginning to reclaim that power, reclaim the spaces, and get curious about what it is that you need to do to move forward. So when people hit that area of awareness, where do you take them then?
Well, the fun and simple thing to do is I truly and honestly believe that when we start a business, and I know there's people out there who don't have their own business and maybe they can think about their career or their job in this way.
Or their life.
Or their life,
general,
yes.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly. We are in relationships all over, in our business, with our money, with our job. We just are with ourselves. And so when you can look at, okay, this thing is something I'm in relationship with, and then take a look back and say, where have my relationships served me and where have they been of harm?
Mm-hmm.
And then take a look back and say, okay, which one feels more true to me here? And what that does is it gives us something that we can look towards to partner with, to, kind of define, well, what kind of relationship do I want to have with my business? I don't want it to be demanding and demeaning. I want it to be loving, supportive, and fun. So if that's what I want, what steps do I take to build that in? Because I have defaulted into old ways of being because I didn't know any differently.
Well, and for example, and I want to give our community an example. For example, like yesterday, I'm talking to two people that have been along with me on the road of Women for One and that are helping me and guiding me with really powerful questions about where I want to go next. And so they're on the phone and they ask me some questions about like, what brings you joy at Women for One? Because, I had this realization after they asked me that. First of all, there were parts of it is like, well, I don't know. Because right now, I mean, it's a lot of work,
Mm-hmm.
which happens sometimes, but really asking myself, what brings me joy? And I had this realization that I have a belief system that says it doesn't matter if you're having fun, you just have to work hard to get something done. And this woman, this lovely woman I've worked with for years, Brandy, who's my website developer and very insightful, she said, Kelly, you have to have joy in what you're doing or it's not going to manifest. And so it kind of disrupted my belief system about like having to work hard and put nose to the grindstone, right? Instead of like, oh, what brings me joy, right? That doesn't mean I don't have to work hard, but if I'm working hard at something that's draining me, that's a little different. So, right, is that what you're talking about when you like have that awareness?
It is. So one of the things that I have my clients do early out is, to think about their business as a relationship. Which one do they want to have? And what they do is they create a list of it's almost like you're creating your dating profile. Like these are the things I want. This is how I want to feel. This is what I see this partnership doing for me and us, in the future. Right. And they start to just create like this profile of what they really want, how they want to feel supported by it. Do they want to have fun? Do they want to have a bigger impact? And they start to just kind of break all those things down, almost like a dating profile. And then what I have them do is write a love letter to that business. Like they create an entity around it. Some people it's like a hot guy. Some people it's like their inner goddess. Some people it's, their, puppy, whatever resonates with them as to what and who their business is. Yeah. Then they write a love letter to it to say, these are the things I want that I think are amazing about you and what you're doing for me. And this is what I want for us in our just like vows that you would take. And then I have them have their business write one back to them. So what you're doing is you're building partnership, you're building that relationship, you're really asking yourself, what do I want here as opposed to what I already have? And we as human beings, we need to relate to something. And it's really difficult with your business to relate to it because you are not your business.
I was just going to say, there's so many things popping up in my head, but that was what I was going to say. I started really understanding that I am not Women for One. Yep. I am Kelly. And I'm actually a servant to my business. And that was another realization I had. Well, why do I have to be a servant to Women for One? Why can't it be a partnership? Why, you know what I mean? Like, kind of in a relationship, here are my needs, here's Women for One's needs, and I have to balance that out. So you have even really helped me just looking at it and shifting my perception, if that makes sense.
Good. And I think that's so important. I can't tell you how many people tell me, well, my business is my baby. And I'm like, well, that's a shame. I want my business to be my baby because babies just poop and scream and cry and they don't do a whole lot for you right away.
Well, it's just your belief system, right?
Yeah.
It really is. It's just quite amazing. So I love that. So I want to ask you this question. I remember reading one of your blogs and I made note of the ways that the blocks and blind spots show up for your clients. Mm-hmm. And some of them include the fear of being visible, perfectionism, that fear of criticism and judgment, which we all have, or deferring to men or perceived authority figures, right? So I've seen how much pressure women put on themselves to be experts and how they set up extremely high standards for themselves and really how that can hold them back. And at Women for One, we talk about the importance of overcoming perfectionism. My book is Your Messy Brilliance.
Yep.
And letting ourselves shine today just as we are. So how do you think we can do that, especially when it comes to our own businesses?
I think that we have to be willing to do things differently. There's so many areas of our life where people need so much from us, and we have been taught to give to the point of exhaustion. And I really don't believe that your business has to be that for you. And here's a couple of questions I want people to ask themselves when they say to themselves, I have to do this, I have to do that. This person needs this for me. I need to be perfect. I can't celebrate, the fact that I just sent an email. I have to wait until the entire thing's done. Or someone says to you, great job, and you're like, yeah, I'm good. Women apologize constantly. And I really want you to ask yourself, when you're feeling some kind of way about yourself in the world, to say, is this true? Is there any evidence to support that I need to do this thing? Is this true? Is this valid? And is there another way? Because there is. Mm-hmm. There absolutely is. The stories that we have been told about who we are in the world and what we're supposed to do are limiting. And we need to know that so we can challenge it. And your business is an amazing way to do that because it gives you options, financial freedom. You get to be the boss. You get to have a voice.
Well, and you talk about that. You've said you can, that's your quote, you can heal your past through your business. And I love that. Can you talk about what you mean by that?
So you know that when you start a business, it is a deep dive into personal development, whether you like it or not, right?
Yes.
It totally is. I think it takes people by surprise. And that's just the way of it. Having a business is a multifaceted thing. Being an entrepreneur is, and it's going to bring up your shit. Yeah. So you might as well, sorry to gross. No, it might as well be a platform for healing. So rather than being put out by judging yourself, feeling less than through the challenges that come up in your business, you can look at them as an opportunity to heal something. And let me give you an example of this really quickly, because this one's hard for people to understand. Anyone who knows me knows that when I was growing up, I had a learning disability, and it was really difficult for me in school. So every day was a challenge. And so what I began to know about myself, and again, this is a little T trauma, if anyone needs an example of that. My understanding of who I was in the world was that I was not smart, that I was behind, and that I didn't know what was going on all the time. I was very confused and felt like everybody had some answer I didn't have. Went to college, I felt like I had healed up all that stuff. Okay, I thought I was good. Well, starting a business brought all that back up again. Yeah, because right. Again, this was a new platform. I had been in therapy. I healed all those traumatic, experiences around having this learning disability for 12 years of my life. But in my business, it was a new arena and new platform for that to come up. And instead of allowing it to be one more place where I felt disempowered and traumatized or triggered, I used my business as a way to show myself, yeah, I'm smart. I'm powerful. I have something to say. People pay me a lot of money for it. I can write this blog post, even though I have a hard time writing sometimes. Right. So that's what I mean. Like if you know that this is possible, you can use your business to heal those things and remind yourself that those stories are not true.
Right. Right. Or, if you have positive stories, I have a question about that before we want to talk about this little T trauma. Do you feel like, if there's some positive stories you have about yourself, that you can use those as well to enhance those belief systems?
You absolutely can, because when you're looking at the pillars of the business that you're building, there's so many facets of this. And so we get to build in our empowerment stories and, show them loudly and proudly in a way that we probably haven't been able to do before. It right. really is.
These women are taught to not do loudly and proudly. And I have a good friend, Judy Goss, and she was like, Kelly, you need to sell yourself more. I'm always like, and that's really, it's pushing my edges because I have a belief system, that what my work will show for itself. Why do I have to push it out there? Why do I have to sell myself? Because I'm from a nonprofit world. I'm not from a business sales world. And she's right. Like the belief system is like, I have to at least tell people what I'm doing so they understand it. And that was really hard for me for a while. It challenged me because I felt like I was boasting or bragging. And I think there's a lot of women out there that are like that.
Right. And there's two ways that shows up. We've been taught not to brag. We've been taught not to shine too bright because we'll make someone else feel badly. And also for a lot of women, being visible feels very unsafe. because of their past.
Yes. And I have that as well. And you know what I do, getting into that really briefly, I feel like a lot of women hide. And I was brought up but kind of in a family of women that were teaching me to hide, to really not shine and come into my power. And also I've been sexually abused, several times. So I know that that's something for me, and I don't have to just abandon my little girl and throw myself out there, right? I can gently step into that shining light. And I think it's important personally, and I want to ask you about this, that women and people know that they don't have to go all or nothing, right? They can go slowly. It's percentages with this. You don't have to throw yourself out there and, to the wolves or cast pearls before swine. You can literally make that choice with your own power to move forward, right? As in your own pace.
Absolutely. I think that when you know this to be true about yourself, you have this clarity about who, what your life has been like and what your experiences are, then you are so much better able to protect and guard that part of you that could be overwhelmed, but also still push the envelope in ways that feel challenging to you, but not overwhelming or triggering. And you don't have to jump into the deep end. I was talking to someone this morning about how there's so much screaming, do it, hustle, like high energy in the world of, particularly online business right now, that is so overwhelming to the majority of the people that I know and work with, because that's not who they are in the world. Right. And it doesn't mean that they're not valid and that they can't show up and be present, but they also, like you said, you don't want to fling that little girl out of her sandbox,
Right.
We want to ask her, hey, is today a day that you feel like coming out to play with us over here? Or are you good over there? There's that honoring that experience of yourself.
Absolutely. So let's get into that real quick, because, you've talked about the impact of the little T trauma on entrepreneurship. So first of all, what is little T trauma, and what have been some of your own personal experiences with that? And how do you transfer that trauma so that it can become inspiration rather than something that holds you back?
Right. So one of the things that a lot of people, I think, have a misunderstanding about trauma in general, usually they assign, most people, when you say trauma, they think the big ones, assault or PTSD or whatever. And really, actually, for a lot of people, that's actually a smaller percentage of the population. It's bigger than I would like for it to be, especially for women. But it actually is a little bit smaller than what you think. And so, but the small T trauma, that is a huge population of people who have this and don't even know they have it. And so what small T trauma is all the small cumulative things that added up to color who you think you are in the world, that kind of takes away the purity of who you are and the belief about yourself. So some examples of that would be for myself, I am not stupid. I'm a very intelligent person and I have a lot to offer. But because of that cumulative effect of being in school every day and them not teaching to the way I needed to be taught, I began to believe I was stupid and that I didn't know what was going on. So that was a small T trauma for me. And I can guarantee you it took me a while to get past that. And it still comes back up. So it's a cumulative effect that really impacted who I thought I was in the world and my confidence. Another small T trauma would be if maybe you were bullied in school. Someone might not think of that as trauma, but it's cumulative and it begins to wear on your belief in yourself and who you are. You begin to see yourself through the lens of the other people who are disempowering you.
And it's almost like that insidiousness, just like this, when you say it, it's like this thread through your life, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy eventually.
Exactly. You having divorced parents and being the only kid in your peer group that has a divorced parent, moving around a lot and always being the new kid, all of those things really are cumulative and they wear on who you feel you are in the world. So they are pretty pervasive and they show up in a lot of areas. They show up in our relationships, romantic relationships, friendships, whether we feel empowered as an employee or not. And it certainly shows up in your business because of that belief system, the lack of trust, and the real inability in that moment, until you get some clarity, to really stand in your power.
Yes, definitely. It's so true. And I all the things you brought up, I'm like, yeah, I've done that. Yeah. I mean, it's just pretty amazing to think about the little T traumas we've had in our lives. And there's just something about you that brings me into a contemplative state, like right away when I speak with you every time. And that's why I love talking to you. And I think you have a lot to offer many, many people. I know you work with men and women, but especially women in this world. And it's just, actually, I got to say, it's kind of not shocking to me, but amazing to me that you had the belief system that you weren't smart, because when I spoke with you the first time, I thought you were one of the most intelligent people I'd ever spoken with.
Oh God.
Right. But like my brother's dyslexic. Right. And, you know, my other son has a severe ADHD. And so they don't learn the same way at school that other people do. And I was the opposite. I was told that I was brilliant all the time. And so I always that was never an issue for me. It was my physical looks that was my little T trauma. You know what I mean? It was like all my life, you know, I've written papers that said, how beautiful am I, with the question mark, and felt very unattractive. And people laugh at me because they're like, Kelly, you know, you're 50, you look great. And I'm like, no, but that's just my thing. So it's like we almost choose the thing, not saying that, you know, it's happened to us, right, Nicole? But right. We also make that choice. And then all of a sudden that ends up traumatizing us and wounding us. And then we repeat it through our lives. So how do you help people interrupt that trauma or just start addressing it other than awareness?
Well, I mean, you know that the pattern of trauma is that, you know, whatever trauma we've experienced, that we then become the perpetrator of it. We re-traumatize ourselves.
Right.
And that was so clear to me that I saw myself and my clients were re-traumatizing themselves with their business. So we have to kind of know that we go from being the victim to the perpetrator, because it is a natural pattern for people who've had trauma to re-traumatize themselves in some kind of way. People do it through food. They do it through, you know, their body image, you know, whatever that may be. We do that. And yes, you can do that in your business too. It's not off limits. So I think it's so important. And so not having no judgment when you notice these things, or you have this memory that comes up and say, oh God, here it is in my business. What the hell? You know, refusing to judge yourself and staying curious about it is so very important, because here's the really cool piece of all this. You know, the thing that has made you, the challenges that you've had is also what has made you an absolutely resilient person. And in entrepreneurship, you need to be, or in business, well, just in general, as a woman these days, being resilient, you know, like, oh my God, just waking up every morning at this point. Being resilient is such a gift. And it's the light side of this. So you have a high tolerance for being resilient. You have a high tolerance for, you know, getting back up on the horse, you know, that you don't get knocked off your square as easily, you know, so there's really is a light side to this when you think about it, that is a huge skill set. It's kind of like your, it's kind of like your superpower as an entrepreneur, you know, that has come. Exactly. So it's pretty cool. And I forgot what you asked me.
Yeah. So I guess my last question, other than where can people find you, is like, what kind of successes have you seen the people you've worked with around addressing these issues? Like, where have they moved towards?
Yes, it's amazing. So it's not uncommon for someone to say, oh my God, my business is my demanding father, or, oh my goodness, I've created, you know, a spoiled child out of my business and I need to put it in check. Or, you know, just to say, I didn't realize how out of control I was in my business until I looked at it and personified it and realized I don't know this person. What are they doing? And so when they're able to look at that, what it does is it changes everything, because they start to be able to build trust, because they know that, hey, because of my experiences, I have an issue with trusting people, and I know this about myself. So these are the things that I need to see from someone before I can trust them. These are the things that I will do when I begin to trust them. I'll start to delegate some tasks to them. When they show me they're trustworthy, then I'll start to rely on them, which is the behavior of trust. And so what it does is it helps them really get the relief that they need in their business, because they start to pick the right people to support them in their business, not people who mirror that chaos and that, you know, lack of support. So their businesses grow, they make more money. I had one person who completely dismantled the business they had because they realized it was a reflection of a place they did not want to be in their life anymore. And they started over and simplified everything. It's amazing what happens because there's that relief, there's the clarity, there's the light side of it because they can see the way through once they have those pieces of the puzzle. And so what it does for people's peace of mind, trust and growth in their business is, I can't even oh my God, I'm trying to think of an example. It's just amazing what happens because it puts you in the driver's seat and takes you out of that victim role that you defaulted in that you didn't realize you had done.
Yeah. And, two things of that. The word clarity really struck me because, in the past 4 months, I've had many staff changes and it's been new to me. I had a consistent director for almost 5 years and it was kind of shock mode when I lost her and my other employee. And then I panicked and I hired someone who was very sweet and very well intentioned, not right for the position. And it was interesting because I wasn't clear on what I needed. I was in panic mode. I just have to fix it. And that, and then looking back at my life, that's what I would do. I just kind of fix things, the whole world was my responsibility instead of just sitting in the mess, like I'm trying to teach people and just being with it for a while. And then I got curious and asked myself questions and decided, I really need to get clear about what I need for this position and what I need for me and what Women for One needs. And as soon as I did that, I got clarity and everything kind of just fell into place, Nicole, the past 3 weeks. And it's just, what a realization, to be able to personify your business and look at it from a distance instead of being all enmeshed. And at first I wanted to say to you, I beat myself up about it. I'm not good at hiring or I screwed up and I went into judgment. And then I went, wait a minute. No, I just learned a huge lesson. Right. And so I wish we could all realize that sometimes you have to make a mess to get clarity.
Oh, absolutely. Your business, a lot of our lives, they're playgrounds for choices and they're playgrounds for getting messy. And when you can be kind to yourself and not to reperpetrate that meanness to yourself and just be the nice one, you can really learn a lot from it. So I'm glad that you didn't stay in judgment for very long because I would never want that.
Absolutely. But that's that's what you help people do, which I think is so amazing. So how can people get in touch with you and work with you or learn about all the incredible information you have for us?
Great. So they can go to my website, which is nicole.lewis-keeber.com. They can find me on Facebook. I'm there too, under Nicole Lewis-Keeber Coaching. I would love for anyone who's curious about this to go to Medium and follow me there. And I would love for them to read a specific article because it's going to take them through some questions that could be very helpful to them. And it is, they can find this article. It's how Me Too experiences affect female founders and the businesses they run.
Oh, wonderful.
And that article is going to take you through a process. It's going to have you ask yourself some questions. And they're pretty powerful questions and they can give people a lot of movement just in reading that. So I really challenge and invite actually people to go read that because I think it could be a game changer for them.
Wonderful. And we'll have you up as our homepage feature for a week and we will have your other posts as well. So I really encourage anybody that's in business, that's an entrepreneur, not just starting out, but in any stage. And also just a person in general, looking at your lives. I think Nicole can, her principles, her strategies, her wisdom can really support all of us. And I feel very aligned with it, with what we're doing at Women for One. So I want to thank you for being here. And I'm just honored to know you.
Oh gosh, the feeling is mutual. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks everyone. And we will talk to you very soon. Please check Nicole out. Have a great day.